Welcome. We're diving into a strategic briefing today on what's becoming a new cold front, the Arctic. This isn't just a frozen expanse anymore. It's quickly turning into a geopolitical chessboard. And believe me, the pieces are moving fast. So, let's get right into it.
The Arctic is Russian. Pretty bold statement, right? Well, this was declared all the way back in 2007. It happened when a Russian submarine went down and literally planted a titanium flag on the seabed of the North Pole. And you have to understand, this was way more than just a symbolic move. It was a crystal clear signal of their intentions, and it really set the stage for the strategic rivalry we're seeing unfold today.
For decades after the Cold War, most people saw the Arctic as this zone of peace, a place for cooperation. Well, that era is over. Climate change, the hunt for resources, and just plain old great power ambition have completely transformed the region. It's now a critical arena for security, economic influence, and crucially, control over brand new global trade routes.
Okay, so to really get what the United States is up against, we first have to talk about the military situation up there. And honestly, it's a huge imbalance. Russia has spent the better part of a decade building up a really formidable presence in the Arctic.
This slide really lays it all out. You see a huge contrast in strategy here. On one hand, you've got Russia's setup. It's this massive network built for one thing, to control its northern coastline and project power. And on the other side, the US has a much, much lighter footprint. Historically, we focused more on defending the homeland, and frankly, leaning on our allies in the region. 40. Remember that number because it's the key to understanding Russia's advantage here. 40 icebreakers. That means they have year-round access, incredible mobility, and basically control over waters that are frozen solid for a lot of the year. And get this, their fleet includes the world's only nuclear-powered icebreakers, giving them capability that is just unmatched. And now, here's the US number 2. Just 2 heavy icebreakers. That disparity right there shows you the capability gap in stark relief. It directly impacts America's ability to just be there consistently, let alone support research or respond to any kind of incident in its own Arctic territory. And look, this isn't just a random collection of military hardware. It's a systematic fortification. Russia has built a whole network of modern airfields, new military bases, and they've refurbished old Soviet-era ports. All of it is there to support their powerful northern fleet. It's a comprehensive strategy, really, designed to create this kind of keep-out zone to secure what they see as their territory and their economic future. But military power is only half the picture. The other major player that's completely reshaping the Arctic is China, and they're doing it with a strategic economic push. Now, here's the interesting thing. China has zero Arctic territory, but it's declared itself a near-Arctic state. And the Polar Silk Road is their grand plan to wedge themselves into the region. It's this vision that combines huge investments, infrastructure projects, and resource extraction, all designed to give Beijing a major say in the Arctic's future. And this isn't just talk, it's backed by some serious cash. Think about it. When Western sanctions hit Russia, who stepped in? China. They pumped billions into critical energy projects like the Yamal LNG facility. And what this did was create this really powerful partnership of convenience. Russia gets the money it needs, and China gets the long-term energy supplies it desperately wants. This image shows you just how tangled this web of interests has become. You can see how Russia and China are connected to things like trade, influence, and control. It's a new geopolitical map where economic partnerships are kind of blurring those old Cold War lines and creating new alliances that really challenge the status quo. So why should policymakers in, say, Washington or London care about a melting ice cap? Well, because it's about to completely remap global trade as we know it. Just look at these numbers. The Northern Sea Route, or the NSR, it literally slashes the travel distance between Asia and Europe by nearly half. I mean, that's a savings of up to 2 weeks of travel time. For the global logistics industry, these kinds of economic incentives are just becoming impossible to ignore. And this chart makes that comparison even more striking. A journey that takes about a month through the Suez Canal, it could be done in less than half the time through the Arctic. In an industry where time is literally money, and with all the instability we're seeing in traditional sea lanes, the NSR is looking more and more attractive. So that brings us to a really critical question for US policymakers.
What happens if our key allies in both Europe and Asia become economically dependent on a shipping lane that is controlled entirely by Russia and heavily influenced by China? What does that do to America's strategic leverage if a crisis ever hits?
So, faced with these clear, growing challenges, how has the United States responded? Well, our own strategic approach to the Arctic has been, let's just say, inconsistent. This timeline on drilling policy kind of gives you strategic whiplash. One administration is all in on energy independence, opening up drilling. The very next one comes in and prioritizes environmental protection, banning it. This kind of back and forth makes it incredibly difficult to build any kind of coherent, long-term economic and security plan for the American Arctic. And this is a big but. The strategic landscape has shifted dramatically in just the last couple of years, and this has created a major new advantage for the US and its allies.
Finland and Sweden joining NATO, this is an absolute geopolitical game changer. All of a sudden, the Arctic is pretty much a NATO lake. Think about it. 7 of the 8 Arctic nations are now NATO members. This move consolidates the entire northern flank. It allows for truly integrated defense planning, and it completely isolates Russia as the sole outsider. This is a powerful, powerful new reality.
So, given this brand new geopolitical map, what's the most effective strategy for the United States? How do we secure our interests but also maintain stability?
Well, the answer isn't just trying to match Russia ship for ship. The US needs to play to its own strengths. That means using things like satellite and undersea sensor networks to know what's going on, hardening our critical infrastructure against cyber threats, and using these non-lethal tools to deter aggression while also pursuing smart, targeted diplomacy. So it breaks down into a clear 3-part strategy. First, deterrence through strength, and that means working closely with our newly expanded NATO alliance. Second, smart diplomacy. We've got to keep lines of communication open with Russia on practical stuff, where cooperation helps everyone. And third, multilateralism. We need to use forums like the Arctic Council to uphold international law and manage China's growing ambitions.
And that really is the ultimate question. The Arctic isn't some distant, frozen frontier anymore. It is a dynamic arena where security, economics, and the environment are all colliding. Navigating this new reality is going to require an incredibly delicate balance of power and diplomacy, of strength, and, maybe most importantly, strategic foresight.